There are some things that God is speaking to me personally, and I want to share them with you. Some of these things have to do, or most of these things have to do with my personal life and what he's, things that he's releasing me from, responsibilities and obligations that he's releasing me from. But the thing I want you to understand about this is that it is absolutely in line with what he's doing right now. So I don't want you to think, okay, well, this doesn't concern me or something like that. There's a reason why at this very time he's releasing me from these obligations. I have been praying about whether or not to sell the commercial building. It's not a huge building, by the way. It's a small commercial building. And I have been wanting to know, is there something that, are we going to be using this? I've even considered, okay, are God's people going to need to live there? Like during some sort of disaster? Why did he have me purchase this building? And there are a lot of things that I could have done with this building. And as a businesswoman, there are certainly ideas that have come into my mind about how I could make money off of that building. However, every single thing that God has given me, everything that he has done with me, I have not taken that for me, at least not since he drew me to himself. I have known from the very beginning, I told you that he had me write down my covenant with him, that money does not belong to me, that I am to ask him how to use it. I am to ask him for permission when I want something. So there's not a single thing that I did to that building, with that building, without asking his permission. And it's been hard. It's been really hard because I haven't had any income from the building. I've just been paying out based on, you know that I cashed out my retirement. I no longer have any income. I completely left the work that I was doing in the world, cashing out my retirement, living on what I saved. And God would not release me from that responsibility because I asked him many times, should I sell the building? He also has not released me from the responsibility of my license, and I don't really want to hold my license anymore. I work for free. What's the point of having a license? I'm not practicing psychology, but in order for me to have certain things like the building, I had to continue to maintain my license, and also the one website where I, have a profile, and I pay for that website every month. But the majority of people who contact me through that website, they don't want what I'm doing. I give everybody the same spiel that I give them when I'm on the channel. If you want to work with me, you can work with me for free. I will not even take any money from you, but you must do a fast and you must do this work, and I will work from a biblical perspective. Well, God's making some changes and he's releasing me from these obligations, these responsibilities. And I've been sitting here asking him, why? Why now? How do I know that you're telling me that right now? And the answer that I'm receiving has everything to do with that time closing in. I have fulfilled my obligation to bring the people in who were going to come in. And now it's time for me to just work with those who want this, with those whom he has brought in. Now, that doesn't mean that more people won't come to the channel. It doesn't mean anything like that. But what it does mean is that he has already brought in those he's going to bring in, not to the channel, to him. That time is closing up. So we are getting closer and closer to that fourth trumpet blowing. That's what I'm understanding today. And I sat down and I started reading scripture, or I sat down and I started journaling, actually, and I asked him to lead me in scripture to help me. You've told me that there are two witnesses. You are always going to, anything that you tell me in the spirit, you're always going to confirm in your word. And the places that he started to lead me to, the first place was Haggai, chapter 2, verse 10. On the 24th day of the 9th month in the 2nd year of Darius, the word of the Lord came to the prophet Haggai. This is what the Lord Almighty says. Ask the priests what the law says. If someone carries consecrated meat in the fold of their garment, and that fold touches some bread or stew, some wine, olive oil, or other food, does it become consecrated? The priest answered, no. Then Haggai said, if a person defiled by contact with a dead body touches one of those things, does it become defiled? Yes, the priest replied, it becomes defiled. Then Haggai said, so it is with this people and this nation in my sight, declares the sovereign Lord. Whatever they do and whatever they offer here is defiled. Now give careful thought to this from this day on. Consider how things were before one stone was laid on another in the Lord's temple. When anyone came to a heap of 20 measures, there were only 10. When anyone went to a wine vat to draw 50 measures, there were only 20. I struck all the work of your hands with blight, mildew, and hail, yet you did not return to me, declares the Lord. From this day on, from the 24th day of the ninth month, give careful thought to the day when the foundation of the Lord's temple was laid. Give careful thought. Is there yet any seed left in the barn? Until now, the vine and the fig tree, the pomegranate and the olive tree have not borne fruit. From this day on, I will bless you. I have been suffering big time for God, and it does not mean that I'm not going to continue to suffer. But I have been suffering, obeying things that have not made sense to me at all. But, just like, and don't say this isn't biblical, just like Abraham going to and living in tents with Jacob and Isaac in a land where he's a foreigner, and God tells him, this is the land you're going to inherit. That doesn't really make sense, does it? But Abraham did it because he knows God and because he had faith in God and righteousness was attributed to him. Well, it hasn't made sense to me to continue to maintain a building, to continue to pay a mortgage on a building off of my retirement, watching everything that I have saved in this life just dwindle. And in the midst of that, having him, tell me, give mercy to people who are stealing from me, pay someone who's trying to sue me, who stole from me, who's lying about me. Go give away all your cash. Oh, okay, yeah, let's do that. That's fun. It hasn't made sense to me. But I see things really clearly now. I know that God has had me building his temple. I know that. I've been talking to you about it. I've been telling you it is our responsibility to get this temple cleaned up and ready for rededication. And one of the things that he did with that building, and I talk about it in Heart Known series in some of the stories, he was cleaning me up. He was teaching me alongside of me cleaning up that building and remodeling that building, the remodel process that was happening in me. He was teaching me what it's like to build a physical temple and what it's like to build his church. So I can't look at that building and say, well, it was all for naught. What was the point? What was the point of having, and that was one of the things that I felt was like, if you're not going to do anything with this, like, what was the point of me getting it? He's fulfilled the point, and he can fulfill more if he wants. He has also provided an opportunity for a soul to be saved who has lived there and cared for those grounds. He's taught him what it is to be a servant in his temple, what it is to guard the temple. The other thing I hear, and in fact, this was one of the first things I heard when I was reading this in Haggai, is he foiled the work of everything that I did, every single thing that I did. I mean, he sent me the worst people as contractor. They were the worst people, I'm telling you. So dishonest. And only recently, and I went through an entire remodel on that building. They charged me for things they never did, because when I had other people going in there to do work, they would tell me, like, these wires are hanging and all of this stuff. I mean, those people they completely tried to rip me off. And only recently have I come in contact with this, like, team of people who are honest and reasonable in price. Like, they're not trying to gouge me. They don't see, oh, look at the rich lady that lives in such and such city. You know what I mean? Like, that's how people have behaved. They don't know anything about my situation. They don't know that I'm living on my retirement, that I gave up all of my careers, that I worked my way from living in a tent to getting a doctorate and raising a child on my own, running 3 businesses. They don't know anything about me. That's their attitude. That's been their attitude. And all of a sudden, he has given me these workers, and they're honest. And they tell me when I don't need something, even when I'm, like, convinced that I need this, oh my goodness, there's something wrong with this thing. They'll explain to me why it is that I don't need that. And they could charge me a heck of a lot of money. And I'm, like, turning to him and going, well, why now? I'm done remodeling that building. My house only needs, like, jobs here and there, but I'm not, like, remodeling my house. Why now? Why didn't you send this to me before? Well, you know what? The devil tries to devour God's people. He's a liar. He's covetous. I've needed to understand what it's like to work with people like that. I've needed to understand how the devil works, how to use discernment. I've also needed to understand that no one can have anything unless God gives it. I needed to deal with my own idolatry of so-called experts or people that I feel like I need them to do this thing. I needed to learn about that because that was a big issue. So he had me working through a lot of things. And the other thing that he had me understanding is that he has foiled the work of my hands. When I hand myself over to that kind of idolatry, he hands me over so that I can learn not to do that. And so he's taught me how to fully consecrate myself to him, how to fully dedicate myself to him so that nothing of that building, nothing of my life No decisions that I'm making are apart from him, that everything is his. He's taught me how to take that position. Everything is yours. I make no decisions without you. I don't even let someone touch a doorknob without you. And now that he's finally brought me into that position, or let's be honest, now that I've finally submitted to that position, he's sent me some good workers. But he can also change things if I hand myself over to that idolatry again. The Lord knows what he's doing, and I hope that I'm doing a little bit of justice anyway to describing the process that he's taken me through, because it's important. It's been important. The next place that he took me to, because one of the things that he was really speaking to me is dedication. Now, in Haggai, the temple's not being dedicated necessarily, but I know that the second dedication is on the 24th of Kislev, or the 24th of the ninth month, as it's written here in Haggai. That's the festival of dedication. It's, commonly called Hanukkah. But see, Hanukkah has all of these connotations around it, and a big old lie of a story about how there was something about light. It's the Feast of Lights. No, it's called the Feast of Dedication in the Word, and it is about dedication. I've read the story in the book of the Maccabees. There is nothing about light in there. There is nothing about that story that they tell in counterfeit Judaism about finding, the oil, and all the oil was defiled, but they just found this much light, and then it burned for 8 days. It is a made-up story. It is not in the book of the Maccabees. I'll tell you some of the key tenets of the story. Mattathias and his family of the Maccabees were upset because the Greeks had taken over the second temple, and they were encouraging Jews to defile themselves in every way, burn the Torah. They were burning the Torah. They were encouraging them to offer defiled sacrifices such as pigs and things like that. They were not allowed to observe Sabbath and taught to defile themselves in every way. And no one was upset about it. No one was upset except for the Maccabees, except for Mattathias and his family. And Mattathias actually had quite a bit of influence, or he was like an influential figure, I guess, within the Israelite community. But there were Jews who became Hellenistic Jews. It was essentially what they did was, well, if you can't beat them, join them. So a Hellenistic Jew is essentially like they combined Greek paganism with Judaism. Yeah, that never works with God, by the way. And so someone approached Mattathias and said, hey, why don't you be the first to encourage the Jews to do these things? And Mattathias was outraged. And he said, I don't care if anyone's doing it. I don't care that other people are doing this. Me and my house, we're not going to be doing this. Well, the Maccabees ended up fighting and reclaiming the temple and cleaning it up and rededicating it to the Lord. And that's what we're supposed to be doing right now. We are supposed to be cleaning up this temple and rededicating it to the Lord. And in the book of Daniel, it says that from the beginning of that 7-year period, 2,300 days later, that the temple is going to be reconsecrated. Now, remember, from the beginning of that 7-year period, in the middle of that 7-year period, on the somewhere around the 1260th day, or after that, technically, because we do see in Revelation that the witnesses will probably be in jail for about 10 days, but they will be testifying for 1,260. So no one can touch them during the 1,260 days, and then somewhere around 10 days, they're going to be jailed and killed. So they're identified as the temple and the daily sacrifice up to that point. And the book of Daniel, chapter 12, tells us that the sanctuary will be thrown down and the daily sacrifice will be abolished. That's referring to the witnesses. Don't think for a second that God's going backward. He's going forward. He's not going to send his son to sacrifice and then be like, oh, and then refer to us as the sacrifice, and then refer to us as the temple, and then go backwards and say, well, never mind. Let me go ahead and have a temple built where animal sacrifices are taking place and totally disrespect everything my son just did. No, I don't think so. We've been called the sacrifice in the temple all throughout the New Testament. And that is the very time that the witnesses are thrown down, that the beast rises from the abyss, overpowers and kills the witnesses. And then 3.5 days later, they rise in the resurrection. That is a day-to-year prophecy. So 3.5 years later would bring us to the end of that 7-year period. So they will rise at the same time that everyone else who participates in the first resurrection rises. But 2,300 days into the 7-year period, the temple is reconsecrated. So the witnesses have died. They've done their work during that 1,260 days, but 2,300 days into that period, the multitude in white robes are considered dedicated. consecrated. What does that mean? You're working something out right now. And this is why I tell you all the time, if you are not walking in the purpose for which God set you apart, but you're healing as an individual and you're walking in the authority that he's given you, and you're as a parent, as a worker, whatever position he has placed you in, you're walking in that, then you're being built in his temple. But the temple as a whole is going to be reconsecrated on the 2,300th day. And in that temple, everybody is a part of a body. Do you know what it means to be part of a body? It means you have a function in the body. And everyone in that temple is a living stone. Do you know what it means to be a living stone? It means your presence as a stone in that temple has an integral role in the structure of that temple. If you get pulled out or you wiggle out in an earthquake, the entire structure of that temple is compromised. So you need to have that function, and the church needs to be brought into that position. And that's the role that I am in, is to build that, is to teach that to you, is to model it and to demonstrate it and to bring you together in assemblies so that you're living this out, so that when I'm gone in 2.25 years, you know what you're doing. So when I tell you that time is closing up, what I'm saying is not that you're going to be brought into that position already. What I'm saying is everyone will have returned to God who's going to return to God. And now it's time for people to live out their covenant. Now that's the focus. And that's why God is releasing me from this, from continuing to pay for, because that was one of the things that didn't make sense to me. Why am I paying every month for an advertisement on a website that I'm not even doing that work? Nor are, there have been a few people that came on. But look, I went to delete it one time. I went to cancel that subscription, and he rebuked me. And I'm going to tell you why. Because it gives people an opportunity. If they're looking for that, and then they hear me speak against those very credentials, and they hear me say, look, this does not work, and I no longer practice this, but I will tell you what does. They're being given an opportunity to be harvested in, and I need to make myself available for that. So what does that mean? That my money, quote unquote, is not mine. Everything that I have, everything that I am, is fully consecrated to God. Let's read something that will help us to understand that concept. Numbers chapter 6. The Lord said to Moses, speak to the Israelites and say to them, if a man or woman wants to make a special vow, a vow of dedication to the Lord as a Nazirite, they must abstain from wine and other fermented drink, and must not drink vinegar made from wine or other fermented drink. They must not drink grape juice or eat grapes or raisins. As long as they remain under their Nazirite vow, they must not eat anything that comes from the grapevine, not even the seeds or the skins. During the entire period of their Nazirite vow, no razor may be used on their head. They must be holy until the period of their dedication to the Lord is over. They must let their hair grow long. Look, every part of them, what you eat, the way your hair is, every part of you belongs to the Lord. You don't get to covet any part of you. You belong to him. Throughout the period of their dedication to the Lord, the Nazirite must not go near a dead body. Even if their own father or mother or brother or sister dies, they must not make themselves ceremonially unclean on account of them, because the symbol of their dedication to God is on their head. Throughout the period of their dedication, they are consecrated to the Lord. If someone dies suddenly in the Nazirite's presence, thus defiling the hair that symbolizes their dedication, they must shave their head on the 7th day, the day of their cleansing. Then on the 8th day, they must bring 2 doves or 2 young pigeons to the priest to the entrance of the tent of meeting. The priest is to offer one as a sin offering and the other as a burnt offering to make atonement for the Nazirite, because they sinned by being in the presence of the dead body. That same day, they are to consecrate their head again. They must rededicate themselves to the Lord for the same period of dedication, and must bring a year-old male lamb as a guilt offering. The previous days do not count, because they became defiled during their period of dedication. I mean, that's a lot, isn't it? To set yourself apart like that. Wait, you belong to me, so if you're going to defile yourself, all right, clock starts over. Now, this is the law of the Nazirite when the period of their dedication is over. They are to be brought to the entrance of the tent of the meeting. They are to present their offering to the Lord, a year-old male lamb without defect for a burnt offering, a year-old ewe lamb without defect for a sin offering, a ram without defect for a fellowship offering, together with their grain offerings and drink offerings, and a basket of bread made with the finest flour and without yeast, thick loaves with olive oil mixed in, and thin loaves brushed with olive oil. The priest is to present all these before the Lord and to make the sin offering and the burnt offering. He is to present the basket of unleavened bread and is to sacrifice the ram as a fellowship offering to the Lord, together with its grain offering and drink offering. Then at the entrance to the tent of meeting, the Nazirite must shave off the hair that symbolizes their dedication. They are to take the hair and put it in the fire that is under the sacrifice of the fellowship offering. After the Nazirite has shaved off the hair that symbolizes their dedication, the priest is to place in their hands a boiled shoulder of the ram, and one thick loaf and one thin loaf from the basket, both made without yeast. The priest shall then wave these things before the Lord as a wave offering. They are holy, and they belong to the priest, together with the breast that was waved and the thigh that was presented. After that, the Nazirite may drink wine. This is the law of the Nazirite who vows offerings to the Lord in accordance with their dedication, in addition to whatever else they can afford. They must fulfill the vows they have made according to the law of the Nazirite. The Lord said to Moses, "Tell Aaron and his sons, this is how you are to bless the Israelites. Say to them, the Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face shine on you and be gracious to you. The Lord turn his face toward you and give you peace. So they will put my name on the Israelites, and I will bless them." All right, I hear a lot of people recite this prayer without any understanding, as though it's something that, like Carrie Job says, "Oh, just receive this," with no understanding of what she's doing. Do you see the understanding here? Do you see the understanding of the responsibilities of consecration, of belonging to him? That you don't get to go off and make your own decisions about how you're going to live your life and whether you're going to sell a building that he gave you, whether you're going to use what he's given you in a way that you want to use it, make up your own doctrine, make up your own gospel, make up your own thing about what he's telling you to do. No, I haven't done that. I have sat here doing dumb things of the world, things that the world would tell me are dumb business decisions, and that's really hard because I was a businesswoman, not understanding why it was that he had me doing certain things. And now he's making it very clear, because that's what consecration is. It means that you don't have any reservations about what it is that God has given you or placed in your care. That's a better way to say it. What God has placed in your care to use according to what he says. That's consecration, and that includes your own life. He has placed your life in your care, just like he's placed the lives of your children in your care. And we have to do things in the way that he says to do them. We can't just make our own decisions or say, well, I'm an adult now, I can do whatever I want. It doesn't work like that. Absolutely nothing is ours. Absolutely nothing. And so one of the things he was showing me, is the way that he foiled everything that I tried to covet. Everything I tried to take for myself. And I think about that now and I think man, I just squandered. I was a high earner, and it's not that I'm trying to go back to that or glorify that or anything like that, but I made the stupidest decisions. Why didn't I should have, done things that I want to do now to make a more comfortable home life and, things like that. I just think about things that I should have done, and I just had no sense. And the truth is, you don't have sense because the only place that true sense, true wisdom comes from is God. I fancied myself such an intelligent businesswoman, and I had no sense. I squandered. The other thing I'm so grateful for is that I have followed what he has said to do since he called me, because the thing that God does is that he foils everything that you try to do by the work of your own hands, and he will remove what you think you've done. Can you see that happening right now? I mean, I kind of said it to you before these trumpets really started to get more intense. I told you that God has the ability to flood your pagan storehouse, whatever that means, whatever it means, whether it's your bank account, your 401k, I don't care what it is. Whatever your pagan storehouse is, if it's your garage, stocked up with all this stuff that the preppers tell us that we need to hoard because we're somehow going to what? Is there somewhere we can run away from God? Where we can be hidden from him, where our hearts can be hidden. We say we believe in him, but we go stock up toilet paper. We don't believe in him if we're doing those things. It was real easy for me when I had, all of this income coming in to say things like, oh, God will provide, God will provide. But you know what? When you're pulling out your life savings, when you've just drained through your life savings and then gone through your retirement, it's not so easy. In fact, it's quite scary. And in fact, you got to wake up every day and you got to rend your heart into, I'm yours. You gave this to me. No one can have anything unless you give it. You will make a way as long as I'm living in you. You got to keep rending your heart into that. I know what that's like on a daily basis. So what am I wanting to say on this video? I mean, there's a few things. There's the confirmation that he's giving me regarding the times, regarding that time closing in. And remember, only the wise are going to know. The wicked are not going to understand. So pray that you do. And by the wicked, he's talking about counterfeit Christianity. He's talking about counterfeit religion. He's not talking about the world. He's talking about those to whom he's going to say, those who are going to say to him on the day that he returns, Lord, Lord, didn't we prophesy in your name? Didn't we cast out demons in your name? Didn't we eat with you in your name? And he's going to say, depart from me, evildoers, I never knew you. So these are people who think that they're in him. He's talking to me about consecration, what it means to dedicate, what it means to truly consecrate ourselves to him. It means to give every single part of ourselves to him. And for that reason, you remember what happened with that contractor? You remember when I went and hired a contractor unilaterally? God gave me permission to put in that fence. And then I hired that guy. I received permission to put in the fence, but I didn't receive permission to hire that person. And I already was feeling uneasy about it. I knew it wasn't someone that God had chosen. And he handed me over, didn't he? Because I left that little piece. I left that little piece of not belonging to him. Every part of us needs to belong to him. And he does not give us grief willingly, but he does give us grief in order to build us and build what cannot be built unless we're brought into that low position. And then he'll relent. When he's done doing what he's doing, he will relent. So these are the things that he's showing me today. I actually am very relieved that I'm going to be relieved from these responsibilities because, frankly, it's been a lot. It's been a lot. But I'm also grateful that he's caused me to stand. I'm grateful that I obeyed him, that he caused me to obey him, because it's not because I'm so good. Trust me. He brought me to a position to obey him. And it's been hard. It's been hard every single day, having that burden on me, knowing that I only have a certain amount of money to live on, but I'm continuing to pay to something that doesn't make sense. I mean, not just something, many things. I mean, I've had to pay for my licensing. I've had to pay for my malpractice insurance, the advertising, the property taxes on that place, all of that with everything that, and like not even reaping a reward from it, at least not a physical reward. That's been really hard. It's been really hard to sit here and say, okay, Father, I'll obey whatever you say. I'll obey you until you tell me to do something different. Thank God I get to do something different now, and thank God I obeyed him. I just want to encourage you with this message because the messages that I receive from people are, like I did a video on a message that I received this morning, all about the work of your own hands, the work of your own mind, and, strategizing and of our own thinking, of our own understanding. But I want you to know that what I'm talking to you about right now is biblical. I want you to know that it did not make sense. I'm sure that Abraham had to have felt the things that I have felt as I've been going through this. Lord, are you sure I'm supposed to be living here as a foreigner in a strange land? I mean, you're telling me that I'm going to inherit this land. Okay, I believe you. I believe you. Okay, you're telling me that my children are going to be as numerous as the stars in the sky and, the sand or the dust, so that if I could count the dust and I could count the stars in the sky, that's how many children I'm going to have, and yet I don't even have one child yet, and I'm old and my wife is old. Do you think Abraham might have thought some of the things that I'm thinking? You think he might have thought some of the things that you think when God tells you to do something that doesn't necessarily make sense? But you know what? We obey. And if we're his, he causes us to stand. So I want to testify to you that that's right, that that's the right thing to do, to obey him even when it doesn't make sense. He will reveal. He will testify. And I also want to tell you that along the way, as he has told me to obey, he has confirmed. He has said things to me, for example, I've told you this in other videos, when I've asked him, why do you have me living here? Like, why LA? Lord, of all places, why in the county of LA? I don't live in the city of LA, but I live in the county of LA, and I don't like it here. I would want to move. I would want to go to the country. I would want to get away from everybody. I don't like the attitudes. I don't like the values. I don't like being on top of each other. I hate it. But this is where he has me. And what he has said to me is that I have set you up in a particular way. You are to stay where you are. So does God not confirm that for me? He has said that. And then today he brought me to the scripture that says you are to remain in the situation that you were in when he called you. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to obey him no matter what. Even if it doesn't totally make sense to me, I'm going to obey him no matter what. And it is okay to ask him to confirm for you. In fact, it's right and it's good to ask him, confirm for me in scripture. Show me in scripture that what I'm hearing is correct. In that way, you're not testing him, you're testing yourself. You're testing to make sure that you are hearing from the Lord, and you are holding him to his own law. His own law says that there must be 2 or more witnesses, so he will witness to you. Thank you for listening. Please discern this message with God.